Welcome to the CES letter, A Closer Look. This video presentation is working from the March 31st, 2015 edition of the CES letter, and will continue our examination of the CES letter's treatment of the Book of Mormon witnesses. In Part 1, we learned that the three witnesses were respectable men and that the vast majority of their combined statements described an experience that cannot be dismissed as simply something they imagined. It is also obvious that hypnosis, even if accomplished by a skilled hypnotist, could not induce a vivid, complex hallucination simultaneously in the witnesses without them being aware of the mind manipulation. A variation on the idea of a hypnotic trance alleges that Joseph did not use hypnosis, but instead induced a religious frenzy in the witnesses, during which he interjected the hallucination into their thoughts or somehow coached their emotionality into seeing things that were not present. It is true that the three men were excited to become the three witnesses mentioned in the Book of Mormon. 2 Nephi 27 verse 12 reads, "Wherefore at that day when the book shall be delivered unto the man of whom I have spoken, the book shall be hid from the eyes of the world, that the eyes of none shall behold it, save it be that three witnesses shall behold it by the power of God, besides him to whom the book shall be delivered, and they shall testify to the truth of the book and the things therein." It is also true that Joseph received a revelation, telling the three witnesses that they would see the breastplate, the sword of Laban, the Urim and Thummim, and the Liahona. So there is no question their expectations were high, as Joseph invited them on a June morning to accompany him to a clearing in the woods where their desires might be realized. In addition, it has been shown that religious excitement can be escalated in the minds of individuals, causing them to see visions. Early American clergyman Charles Chauncey described the experiences of pious individuals in a camp meeting setting. Visions now became common, and trances also, the subject of which were in their own conceit transported from earth to heaven, where they saw and heard most glorious things, conversed with Christ and the holy angels, had opened to them the book of life, and were permitted to read the names of the persons there, and the like. This account records how multiple persons saw visions, the Savior, an angel, and a book. Chauncey further explains what had preceded this remarkable display. The speaker delivers himself with the greatest vehemence, both of voice and gesture, and in the most frightful language his genius will allow of. If this has its intended effect upon one or two weak women, the shrieks catch from one to another till a great part of the congregation is affected. And some are in the thought that it may be too common for those zealous in the new way to cry out themselves on purpose to move others and bring forward a general scream. The preacher creates a religious frenzy as the excitement of the listeners escalates, and eventually some reported rapturous visions. Morgan Edwards, a Welsh historian of religion and Baptist minister, described the importance of the tones of the voice and actions of the body of the Baptist and Congregationalist ministers as they incited their audience into crying out under the ministry, falling down as in fits, and awaking in ecstasies, impulses, visions, and revelations. Early religious writer William Montgomery explained that the greatest asset of successful Baptist preachers was their language skills, including their ability to create vivid word pictures and their feel for the rhythms and evoked bodily responses of listeners. Could it be that Joseph Smith used these techniques to induce hallucinations in the three witnesses? Fortunately, all three left statements regarding their experiences. David Whitmer recounted, "I was plowing in the field one morning, and Joseph and Oliver came along with a revelation stating that I was to be one of the witnesses of the Book of Mormon. I got over the fence, and we went into the woods nearby and sat down on a log and talked a while. We then kneeled down and prayed. Joseph prayed. We then got up and sat on the log and were talking. when all at once a light came down from above us and encircled us for quite a little distance around. And the angel stood before us. He was dressed in white, and spoke and called me by name, and said, Blessed is he that keepeth his commandments. This is all I heard the angel say. A table was set before us, and on it the records were placed. The records of the Nephites, from which the Book of Mormon was translated, the brass plates, the ball or directors, the sword of Laban, and other plates. While we were viewing them, the voice of God spoke out of heaven, saying that the book was true and the translation correct. Oliver Cowdery, too, related, It was a clear, open, beautiful day, far from any inhabitants, in a remote field at the time we saw the record, of which it has been spoken, brought and laid before us by an angel, arrayed in glorious light, who ascended out of the midst of heaven. Now, if this is human juggling, judge ye. Martin Harris recalled, When the time came for the three witnesses to see the plates, Joseph, myself, David Whitmer, and Oliver Cowdery went into the woods to pray. When they had all engaged in prayer, they failed at the time to see the plates of the angel who should have been on hand to exhibit them. They all believed it was because I was not good enough, or, in other words, not sufficiently sanctified. I withdrew. As soon as I had gone away, the three others saw the angel and the plates. Martin also related, After they, David Whitmer, Joseph, and Oliver, had been visited by the angel, the prophet then came over to me where I was praying, and I asked the prophet to pray with me. After praying some time, the angel appeared with the gold plates, and I saw, with these two eyes, the angel stand with the gold plates in his hand, and I saw him turn leaf by leaf the plates of gold. And I also heard the voice of the Lord saying that these words were true and translated correctly. Concerning Martin's experience, David Whitmer remarked, I don't think he saw all that we did. But then David declared, Our testimony, as recorded in the Book of Mormon, is strictly and absolutely true, just as it is there written. Joseph Smith's role in these described experiences places him praying and engaging in talking. There is no mention of antics that could be interpreted as trying to induce either a state of hypnosis or whipping them into a religious frenzy. The multiple descriptions are very consistent with each other. It seems that only by embellishing these accounts and fabricating details otherwise not present in the witnesses' statements, that Joseph's role can be redefined as that of a skilled hypnotist or expert revivalist preacher. The historical record shows that Joseph Smith did not embrace or display the flamboyancy of revivalist preachers or encourage the uncontrolled behaviors of enthusiastic religionists. Even so, such phenomena would still seem inadequate to explain the testimonies of the Book of Mormon witnesses. The CES letter also seeks to dismiss the testimonies of the 3 and 8 witnesses by comparing them to other published testimonies regarding religious visions and experiences. First is a comparison to James J. Strang's Vori plates. The CES letter spends over 3 pages discussing these plates and witnesses associated with them. Strang, a late convert to Mormonism, claimed to have received a letter from Joseph Smith appointing him to lead the church if the prophet were killed. Strang also claimed to translate ancient plates as the Book of the Law of the Lord. Emulating the Book of Mormon, a testimony of 7 witnesses is included in this book that Strang professed to have translated. Comparing the witnesses' testimonies, however, illustrates important differences. For example, the Strang witnesses reported no supernatural component, so their experience differed greatly to that reported by the 3 witnesses. At least one Strangite witness later denounced his project as mere human invention. Another Strangite witness later confessed to helping fabricate the plates. The witnesses, even after leaving the Strangite movement, expressed no concerns about continuing to bear the witness to what they had seen. The CES letter also compares the Book of Mormon testimonies to those found in an 1843 book entitled A Holy, Sacred, and Divine Roll and Book from the Lord God of Heaven, that was published in New Hampshire. It contains 269 pages, some divided with chapters and verses. The second half is an appendix comprised of multiple testimonials. Tucked within these testimonials is a single sentence with 8 names attached that read, "We, the undersigned, hereby testify that we saw the holy angel standing upon the housetop, as mentioned in the foregoing declaration, holding the roll and book." This has been reproduced in the CES letter. The CES letter seems concerned that Joseph only had 3 witnesses. While there are 2 similarities, important differences show that the 2 are very dissimilar. On page 62, the CES letter attempts to discredit the witnesses, writing, "This is what first counselor in the First Presidency and once close associate, Sidney Rigdon, had to say about Oliver Cowdery, a lying, thieving, counterfeiting man who was united with a gang of counterfeiters, thieves, liars, and blacklegs in the deepest dye, to deceive, cheat, and defraud the saints out of their property by every art and stratagem which wickedness could invent." The first 7 words are not part of the original quotation and are from an unknown source. The remaining statement is from a February 15, 1841 letter. The CES letter fails to include another portion of that same letter that specifically mentions the witnesses' testimonies of the Book of Mormon. We wish to remind you that Oliver Cowdery and David Whitmer were among the principal of those who were the means of gathering us to this place. By their testimony, which they gave concerning the plates of the Book of Mormon, that they were shown to them by an angel, which testimony we believe now as much as before you had so scandalously disgraced it. It is true that the witnesses and church leaders were in conflict, but both sides maintained that the witnesses' experience with the angel was true. The CES letter asks, what does this say about the witnesses and their characters, if even the prophet and his counselor in the First Presidency thought they were questionable? Well, it shows that Joseph Smith was apparently not worried about the witnesses denying their testimony, even though if they had, it would have weakened his own credibility and the believability of his teachings and revelations. If Joseph had hypnotized them or induced a religious frenzy to manipulate their memories, he must have been certain that the experience was so real to all 3 of them that they would never deny it. That the witnesses were not co-conspirators with Joseph in a ruse to fool the people is supported. Clearly, they were more devoted to their testimonies than they were to Joseph Smith or to the church, which held them in high esteem, giving them honored positions wherever they went. Observers can judge the usefulness of the CES letter's treatment of the testimonies of the 12 witnesses of the Book of Mormon, of the 3 witnesses and the 8 witnesses, and Joseph Smith. If the coming forth of the Book of Mormon was not, as they portrayed in their statements, but instead emerged through some alternate process, what might it have been? To date, the naturalists' explanations involving hypnosis or religious frenzy seem inadequate. Such theories simply do not fit the evidence and include impossible assumptions. The reliability of the witnesses cannot be proven any more than the truthfulness of their declarations can be verified. But their existence does appear to be effective in fulfilling their original commission, just as it did immediately after their experiences with the angel, Joseph's mother, Lucy Mack Smith, recalled his feelings at that time. "You do not know how happy I am. The Lord has caused the plates to be shown to 3 more besides me, who have also seen an angel, and will have to testify to the truth of what I have said, for they know for themselves that I do not go about to deceive the people, and I do feel as though I was relieved of a dreadful burden which was almost too much for me to endure. But they will now have to bear a part, and it does rejoice my soul that I am not any longer to be entirely alone in the world." For more information, see ldsanswers.net.